Every fighter jet ever built makes one compromise. Go fast, and you burn through your fuel. Fly far, and you give up thrust. For 70 years, that trade was a law of physics no engine could break. The F-47 just broke it, not with more power, but by rebuilding its own engine in mid-air. Hidden inside that airframe is what the Air Force calls an adaptive cycle engine, and the part that makes it work is a third stream of air no production jet engine in history has ever had. Over the next 20 minutes, I'll show you exactly what that third stream does, why GE Aerospace and Pratt and Whitney burned a decade and billions of dollars to build it, and the one thing it lets the F-47 do that China's J-36, for all its size, still can't. Here's the misconception we're going to kill first, that a jet engine is a fixed machine, that once it's bolted to the airframe, its character is set. Fast or efficient, sprinter or marathon runner. For every fighter that has ever flown, that was true. The F-47's engine is the first one built to change its mind. Two numbers frame everything that follows. The adaptive engines tested before this one delivered around 25% better fuel efficiency, roughly to the same fuel, the same air, the same core. Not a new fuel, not a bigger engine, just air, routed 3 ways instead of 2. By the end of this video, you'll understand why that single idea, variable airflow, is the most important thing to happen to fighter propulsion since the afterburner. Because the secret was never how fast this engine makes the jet go. It's that the engine never stops changing shape. Let's start with the trap every engine before it was stuck in. Let's kill the myth right now. There is no such thing as a best jet engine. There's only the engine that's best for one specific job. And the reason comes down to a single number engineers call the bypass ratio. Here's what that means in plain terms. A jet engine pulls in a huge slug of air at the front. Some of it goes through the hot core, compressed, mixed with fuel, ignited, blasted out the back. That's your raw thrust. But most of the air on an airliner's engine goes around the core, pushed by the big front fan. That's bypass air, cooler, slower, far more efficient. The ratio between those two, air around the core versus air through it, is the engine's entire personality. Crank the bypass ratio high like the engine under a Boeing 787 and you get a machine that sips fuel and flies forever. But it's fat, draggy, and useless past the speed of sound. Crank it low like the engine in an F-16 and you get a screaming supersonic sprinter that drinks fuel like it's trying to empty the tank. High bypass, range. Low bypass, speed. Pick one. And here's the cruelty of it. A fighter pilsion, sometimes in the same minute. He needs to cruise hundreds of miles to the fight, sipping fuel, holding station as long as possible. Then, the instant a threat appears, he needs to slam the throttle and turn that efficient cruiser into a supersonic knife fighter. One mission, 2 completely opposite demands on the engine. For 70 years, engineers solved this the only way they could. Compromise. They picked a bypass ratio somewhere in the middle and called it good enough. The F-100 in the F-15, the F-119 in the F-22. Brilliant engines, every one of them frozen at a single fixed compromise the day it was designed. Good at everything, perfect at nothing. Think about what that costs in the real world. The F-22 is the most dominant air superiority fighter ever built, and it can barely reach the Western Pacific without a tanker holding its hand the entire way. Range is the silent killer of American air power, and it traces straight back to that one frozen number. So engineers asked a heretical question. What if the number didn't have to be frozen? What if the engine could change its bypass ratio in flight? High for the cruise, low for the dash, shifting moment to moment. For decades, that was a fantasy. Then the third stream made it real. So how do you unfreeze a jet engine? UGI conventional engine has 2 streams through the core and around it. The adaptive engine adds a third, an extra duct of air wrapped around the other 2 with valves that open and close it on command. That third stream is the whole trick. Master it, and the engine stops being one machine and becomes 2, blending between them on demand. Run the engine in dash mode and the system clamps the third stream shut. Now nearly all the air is forced through the hot core. Maximum thrust, low effective bypass, the engine behaving like a supersonic turbojet. The pilot gets every pound of push the machine can produce. Now back off for the cruise home and the engine opens that third stream wide. Suddenly there's a massive column of cool air moving around the core. High effective bypass, airliner grade efficiency. The same engine that was a sprinter 60 seconds ago is now a marathon runner, stretching the fuel and the range. Same hardware, same flight, completely different engine. That is what adaptive cycle actually means. And this isn't a PowerPoint concept. The Airlu IT. The program was AETP, the Adaptive Engine Transition Program, and it produced two real engines, GE's XA100 and Pratt and Whitney's XA101, both in the 45,000-pound thrust class. On the test stand, they delivered what physics says you can't have at once around 25% better fuel efficiency thrust and a leap in cooling capacity. Every number moved the right way at the same time. That never happens in propulsion. You always pay for one with another. The third stream broke the rule, so if it worked that well, here's the obvious question. Why isn't it already flying in the F-35 right now? Because it almost did, and the story of why it didn't is the reason the F-47 exists. AETP was built to re-engine the F-35. It would have handed the jet a massive jump in range and cooling overnight. But there was a catch. It only physically fit the Air Force's F-35A. The Marines' F-35B, with its vertical lift fan, couldn't take it, re-engining one of 3 Vupley chain and swallowing a bill in the billions. In the 2024 budget, the Pentagon blinked. It killed adaptive propulsion for the F-35 and patched the existing engine instead. But they didn't throw the technology away. They rolled it straight into a new program built around a clean sheet airframe. No legacy variants to satisfy, no around, no compromise. That program is NGAP, Next Generation Adaptive Propulsion, and its entire reason to exist is to power one aircraft. The engine the F-35 wasn't allowed to have became the heart of America's next fighter. Now we reach what the title promised, what Thule looks like second by second. The two engines competing to power the F-47 are GE Aerospace's XA102 and Pratt & Whitney's XA103. Both are NGAP designs, bigger, sharper descendants of the AETP demonstrators, this time drawn from the first sketch for a 6th-generation fighter, instead of retrofitted into an old one. Both have already passed major design reviews, and both are run by something that matters as much as the metal, the engine's brain. Because a 3-stream engine is only as good as the computer deciding when to shift it. Open the 3rd stream a moment too early and you bleed thrust in a fight. Leave it shut too long and you burn fuel you'll need to get home. The real magic isn't the duct. It's the full authority digital control reading airspeed, altitude, throttle, temperature, and threat state hundreds of times a second, constantly re-optimizing the airflow split. The pilot never touches it. He asks for performance, the engine decides how to deliver it. Picture a single Pacific sortie. The F-47 launches and climbs out in full efficiency mode, 3rd stream, wide open, sipping fuel, every pound of gas converted into range. For 90 minutes, it cruises toward the threat envelope as a marathon runner, reaching farther on internal fuel than any fighter in U.S. history. Then the sensors light up. In the time it takes the pilot to push the throttle, the engine reconfigures. 3rd stream clamping down, air flooding the core, the manter mid-stride, maximum thrust for Themerge. The threat is gone, and the engine quietly opens the stream back up and settles into cruise for the long flight home. 1 flight, a dozen reconfigurations, and that capability isn't a luxury. In the Pacific, it's survival. The distances out there are brutal. China's missiles can now reach the tankers, and the bases America has always leaned on, which means the old plan, top off from a tanker just outside the fight, is a plan that gets tankers shot down. The F-47 has to carry the range inside itself. Run the math on what adaptive propulsion buys. The efficiency from that 3rd stream translates into something on the order of 30% more range and loiter time over a conventional fighter engine. 30% can be the difference between reaching a target and turning back 200 miles short, between holding a patrol line for 40 minutes and holding it for an hour. In a Pacific fight, range isn't a number on a spec sheet. It's whether you're there when it matters. The 3rd stream is how the F-47 buys it without a tanker babysitting every mission. Here's where it gets genuinely strange, because the 3rd stream's most important job might have nothing to do with thrust at all. Modern fighters are drowning in their own heat. Every radar, every electronic warfare jammer, every processor and sensor on a stealth jet dumps enormous waste heat. And you can't just bolt a big external radiator onto a stealth aircraft because that's a glowing target for an infrared missile. So where does the heat go? Into the fuel and into the engine. On today's fighters, thermal management is a hard ceiling on how much electronics you can run. The jet isn't power limited, it's cooling limited. The 3rd stream rewrites that equation. That extra column of cool bypass air is a built-in heat sink. A river of cold the aircraft can dump its waste heat into without hanging anything out in the wind. Suddenly, the F-47 can run more powerful sensors, more capable computer oaking itself. The engine isn't just propulsion anymore, it's the cooling system for the entire aircraft. And then there's the reason this really matters for a 6th-generation fighter. Directed energy. Lasers, high-power microwave weapons. Systems that could wand off the sky for the cost of a few seconds of electricity instead of a $1 million interceptor. Everyone wants them on the next fighter. The problem was never the laser itself. It's the obscene electrical power and cooling a laser demands. Fire one on a conventional jet and you'd overwhelm its thermal system in seconds. This is the part that flips the whole story. An adaptive engine is designed to generate huge electrical power and provide the cooling to match both at once from that same third stream. The F-47's engine isn't just built to move the jet, it's built to power weapons that aren't in frontline service yet. The airframe could be carrying a laser years from now, and the engine to run it is already being designed today. The propulsion is future-proofed for weapons still on the drawing board. That's the difference between a great engine and a generational one. A conventional fighter engine answers one question: how hard can you push the jet? The adaptive engine answers three at once: how far can it fly, how hard can it fight, and how much of the future can it carry? Thrust, range, and power, no longer fighting over the same air. Which raises the question Beijing is asking right now. If this is so decisive, why is China building its newest fighter with 3 engines instead of one like this? Look at China's 6th generation prototype. Hing jumps out. It's enormous, tailless, and it has 3 engines, 3 intakes, 3 exhausts on a single fighter-type aircraft. And once you understand the third stream, that layout tells you something. Because 3 engines is, in a sense, the BR problem the F-47 solves with 1. What does a giant tri-engine jet give you? More total thrust, more electrical power, more raw air to cool your systems, more volume for fuel and range. Those are precisely the things the adaptive engine delivers. All our range, power, cooling. China appears to be chasing the same destination. It's just taking the heavy road to get there. And the reason is propulsion. China's most advanced operational fighter engine, the WS-15 that powers the J-20, only matured into reliable service recently. Conventional fixed-cycle turbofan, roughly a generation behind in the fundamentals. There's no evidence China has a production 3-stream adaptive engine anywhere near ready. So if you can't build one elegant engine that changes its own bypass ratio, what do? You bolt on 3 conventional ones to muscle out the thrust, power, and cooling you need. It works, but it's heavier, thirstier, more complex, and harder to keep stealthy. That's the whole story in a single contrast. The F-47 gets its range, its thrust, and its cooling from one engine smart enough to change its own character in T's reaching for the same capabilities by carrying more engines. One is an elegance problem solved. The other is a brute force workaround for an elegance problem not yet solved. That gap, adaptive versus fixed, 1 smart engine versus 3 plain ones, may be the clearest single measure of who actually leads in 6th generation air power. Now, none of this makes the F-47 invincible, and I won't pretend the program has no risk. Adaptive engines are fearsomely complex. NGAP still has years of testing ahead, and past a design review is a long way from fielded across a fleet. Programs slip, budgets bite, but the direction is set and the physics is proven. The third stream isn't a fantasy number on a thumbnail. It's hardware that has already run on a test stand and delivered, which is exactly why it's worth understanding properly, instead of as another impossible speed claim. Step back from the speed records, and here's what the F-47 story actually comes down to. For 70 years, fighter engines were frozen the day they were born. 1 bypass ratio, 1 personality, 1 compromise carried for the life of the jet. The adaptive engine ends that. It's the first fighter power plant that refuses to choose between fast and far, between fighting and flying home, betwedge its weapons. And notice what we did not need to make the case. We didn't need Mach 12. We didn't need a physics-defying speed the Pentagon supposedly buried. The real revolution, it's a third duct of air and a computer smart enough to know when to open it. The most important machine on a 6th-generation fighter isn't the airframe or the radar or the weapons. It's the engine that quietly rebuilds itself a dozen times on every mission and lets everything else on the jet do its job. That's the thing about real engineering. It's less flashy than the headline and far more impressive once you see how it actually works. A third stream of air, a once a second, range, thrust, and power that finally stopped fighting each other. That's not science fiction, that's a design review the Air Force signed off on being built right now by 2 of the oldest which leaves one real question hanging, the one I want to dig into next. We've established that China is answering the F-47 with a 3-engine brute force machin only about power. There's a specific mission those 3 engines were chosen for, and China thinks the next Pacific War actually looks like. So here's what I want from you. Drop a comment with what you think that 3rd engine on the J-36 is really for: range, payload, or something we haven't touched yet. I'll take the best theories and put them up against what the design actually tells us in the next video. Because once you understand the engine, you stop watching these jets as fast-moving shapes in the sky, and you start seeing the decisions, the trade-offs, and the quiet revolutions that decide who owns the air. The F-47 didn't break the laws of physics, it just stopped letting them freeze its engine, and that might be the more dangerous trick.